How high will car prices go from the tariffs, and how much time do you have left to get a good deal? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Help Q&A. My name is Shari, and today I'm going to be answering your car questions from the comments section. And if you want to have your question answered in a future Q&A video, just leave your question down in the comments below, and I'll try to answer it next time. So let's get straight into it, starting with the first question. Good day. Would like to know your thoughts on car prices post-tariffs. Would car prices go up? Should we hold back? And new versus used, what would you recommend in this situation? Okay, the question on everybody's minds. What's going to happen as a result of the tariffs? I'm going to try to answer this as straightforward as possible without a long word salad answer that I'm seeing on a lot of other channels right now. So the short answer is yes, eventually car prices are going to go up as a result of the tariffs, as long as they remain in place. And right now, a lot of car companies are trying to figure out the situation and decide how to approach this, how much to increase prices by, how can they find other ways around it, and exactly when that's going to start happening. So the consensus seems to be that most car manufacturers will be doing price increases around June, July, as long as the tariffs remain in place. And so far for the month of April and most likely going into May, there's not going to be a lot of change in car prices. In fact, there's been a lot of momentum lately when it comes to car sales. I think a lot of consumers are just trying to rush and buy a new car quickly before prices start to go up. Sales have been doing well as a result. And right now, a lot of automakers are actually lowering their prices and offering a lot of incentives and rebates to keep those sales going. So here are a few examples of actually what's been happening lately. So right now, both Stellantis and Ford have introduced employee pricing in the US. So that's employee pricing incentives with pretty massive discounts on most of their available inventory. General Motors and Tesla, the other two domestic automakers, have not done any changes to their pricing. They have lots of deals available at the moment. And moving on to Asian brands, Nissan has actually cut pricing, cut MSRP on a few models, including the Rogue and Pathfinder in the US, which is interesting. And they also have plenty of incentives across their lineup. Other Japanese brands, Honda, Mazda, no real changes in their pricing for April. They still have lots of incentives available. Toyota announced that they have no plans to increase their prices in the near future. And Hyundai has said the same thing. They said there's going to be no price increases until June, until they've had time to sort out the situation. BMW has said the exact same thing, but they're only giving it until May before they may have to increase car prices. And it's a similar situation with other European brands. No immediate changes in pricing right now, but all bets are off come May, come June. So if you want to buy a car, or if you were already thinking of buying a car, now is the time to do it. April and May, prices are going to remain fairly stable in those months, but going into June and beyond, that's when all bets are off, and most likely car prices are going to go up. How much exactly? Well, it depends on the vehicle. Now, of course, vehicles that are not manufactured in the United States are going to face a 25% tariff. So they're going to see the largest price increases if you're an American buyer, most likely in the range of 10 to 15%, which means if you were going to buy a car around $50,000, the pricing could go up between $5,000 to $7,500. Now, just because the car is manufactured in the US doesn't mean it's going to be safe from tariffs. That's absolutely not going to be the case, because as of May, the Trump administration is going to place tariffs on the parts in the vehicles. So every single car has parts that are manufactured or come from outside the United States. They're all imported. So the parts are going to have tariffs as well. So vehicles that are still made in the United States, but the parts come from elsewhere, they're most likely going to see price increases in the range of around 5%. So basically, no vehicles are going to be safe from the tariffs. They're all going to see price increases. And if you want to see that, there's a very interesting report that came out a while ago that shows you exactly what percentage of parts come from outside the country, even for vehicles that are made in the United States. For basically all of them, it's between anywhere from 20 to 80% approximately. And of course, if you're Canadian, this is going to affect you the exact same way because of the reciprocal tariffs that are going to be in place. Whatever the US does, Canada is likely going to mimic the other way around. So it's an unfortunate situation because consumers have already faced massive price increases over the past 4 or 5 years. And now to see even higher prices in the coming months, it's an awful situation for consumers. They're really going to pay the price, unfortunately. But as I said, if you were considering buying a car, or if you were already planning to buy a new car, do it now. Do it in the month of April and May. Prices are going to remain very attractive, basically where they are, with incentives, discounts, and rebates. So now's the time to capitalize on a good deal. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Question for your next video. My lease on a 2023 Nissan Rogue is ending in a few months. It only has 10,000 kilometers on it. The buyout is around $30,000 excluding tax. Would you suggest buying it out? I would like to keep it for another 3 to 4 years if I bought it. My concern is long-term reliability and Nissan's current financial situation. But on the flip side, I'm concerned about the possible price hikes on new and used vehicles due to tariffs if I decide to return the Rogue. What would your advice be? Excellent question. I know a lot of consumers are in a similar situation to this. So my advice when it comes to Nissan specifically is that they are good vehicles to lease. There's excellent lease deals available on them. Not the best vehicles to keep for long-term ownership and keep past the lease because they just don't have the same level of reliability as other brands do. So I wouldn't keep the Rogue for long-term ownership. Even though you don't do a lot of driving, very, very low mileage driving, most likely you won't have any issues if you were to buy the car. And if your financial situation is very, very tight, certainly it's not a bad idea to buy the car because you've already paid a chunk of it. The buyout is reasonable given the mileage. But if you can afford to get out of the lease and get into something else, I would recommend doing it because there are better cars out there, more reliable cars with better resale value. And like I said, April and May are the months where you can find some really good deals. So if your lease is ending in the near future, explore your options, see what else is out there because you might be able to get yourself a really good deal on a better car. So that would be my advice for that. Hello Shari, great show with great content. My question is buying an internal combustion engine versus hybrid vehicle. If keeping it for less than 5 years, there is no payback. What do you think? Okay, this is actually a very common misconception when it comes to hybrids. Now, most of us know that hybrid cars, even though they're very appealing, they save you a lot of money on gas, they are more expensive to buy, typically around $2,000 to $3,000 more to get the hybrid engine. So a lot of people think, hey, if I'm only going to keep the car for 5 years, there's going to be no payoff because I paid all that extra money. Well, that's actually not true because you have to look at the whole picture. And the reality is that hybrids have much higher resale value than most other vehicles. In fact, there was a very recent report that came out from IC Cars that showed that hybrid vehicles have the highest resale value of any type of vehicle category, which means that yes, you're going to pay a little bit more upfront when you buy the hybrid, but you're also going to get that money back on the back end when you go to sell it or trade it in. You might actually get even more money because it's a hybrid. So in the end, you're not going to be paying anything extra. And in the meantime, during that ownership period, you're going to save a lot of money on gas, around 20-30% at least. So that's why hybrids make so much sense. And in most cases, I do recommend going for the hybrid option if you're able to. So that's my answer for that. Okay, next question. Can you do a segment on the pros and cons of buying a lease return or from a car rental company? Okay, interesting question. Now, when it comes to buying used vehicles, buying a lease return vehicle that's 3-4 years old, no big deal. I mean, the vast majority of good used cars that are being sold by new car dealerships, used car dealerships, a lot of them are lease returns. And those are typically some of the safer type of vehicles to buy. When it comes to rental vehicles, however, that's where you need to be more careful because rental vehicles typically experience a lot more abuse, a lot more wear and tear because they're driven so frequently, so hard. And as a result of that, they are worth less money because there's more repair concerns, more maintenance concerns. And in fact, in some regions, dealerships are required to disclose whether a car was used as a rental car for that reason. So I would only consider a rental car if it's from a reliable brand, a well-made car, and only if you're getting a significant discount, because the price has to make sense in order for it to be worth it. Otherwise, I would just stay away from rental cars. So that's my answer for that one. And for the next question, how long can a vehicle sit at a dealership before lot rot becomes a concern? I have seen vehicles sitting on the lot for 16 months based on the door card manufacturer data, with only 40 miles on the odometer. Are they worth the risk? Okay, excellent question. This is a great one. Now, yes, this is a very common thing you're going to come across for certain brands where vehicles, brand new vehicles, have been sitting on the dealer lot for several months, sometimes over a year because they're not selling. They may look like a good deal with huge discounts, but there are some real concerns and risks with buying a vehicle like this. When a vehicle has been sitting for too long and not been driven, it could develop problems. The most significant problems are brake problems, battery or electronic problems, and fuel system problems. The brakes, they get rusty, they can seize up, and when you drive that vehicle, it could be very jittery or lots of road vibration when you drive or when you brake because of the rusty brakes. They can have electronic problems, battery problems. If the battery has gone dead, it can cause issues with the car's electronics and computers. I've seen all kinds of problems like that with cars that have been sitting too long. And like I said, fuel system problems, because fuel does eventually go bad if it's sitting in a vehicle for too long. I've seen all these things happen with vehicles that have been sitting on dealer lots for, I would say, 3-4 months. Any longer than that, there is a risk. So if you are buying a vehicle that's been sitting for more than 3 or 4 months, make sure you have it properly checked. Make sure the dealership checks the car over and make sure there's no problems with it. And if necessary, even put it in writing. Put it in writing on the contract that this has been checked, that's been checked, just to protect yourself, to make sure you don't have any issues. And of course, only buy a car like that if you're getting a phenomenal deal, an excellent large discount, so that it's worth it and it makes sense in the end. So great question. And for the next one, how important are IIHS ratings? The Hyundai SUV has a better rating than Toyota. So for those who don't know, IIHS, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, they are the gold standard when it comes to vehicle safety ratings. They have their famous Top Safety Pick and Top Safety Pick Plus awards, which are considered the safest cars in the industry. I do think there's a lot of value in that. I put a lot of weight in that, and I would certainly give preference to a vehicle that has a top safety pick rating. I wouldn't necessarily call it a deal breaker just because a vehicle doesn't have that rating, because at the end of the day, all new vehicles are very safe and much, much safer than vehicles that were made even just several years earlier. So you are getting a safe vehicle regardless of what you buy these days. But if you want the best of the best and you want to be on the safe side, getting a car with that safety rating from the IIHS is definitely a major perk, and I would certainly lean more towards one of those vehicles. So yes, it is very important for sure. And for the next one, my question is, if you bought a new auto, would it be worth it to have it ceramic coated? And if so, what would be the best brand? Okay, excellent question, ceramic coating. Now, this is a very popular thing to do to sports cars, high-end cars, to protect the paint finish. Ceramic coating basically protects the paint from UV rays. It makes the paint glossier and shinier and gives it a slick finish that repels dirt and water. And that's really the extent of it. I don't think ceramic coating is necessary on the vast majority of normal cars. It's expensive to do. Most of them wear off after a year or two, so they're really not worth the money for regular everyday cars. I would say that a much better investment would be to buy clear paint protection film. That clear film that you put on the front of the car that protects it from stone chips and road debris, that's a lot more effective and a more worthwhile product to spend your money on. Ceramic paint coatings, not so much, at least not for regular cars. If you really want to do it, however, the ceramic coating that I would recommend is called FinLab. It's one of the highest quality ceramic coatings that is available. It has a 5 to 7 year warranty, so it actually lasts a long time, and it has the warranty to back it up. And it has healing properties. If you do any light scratches or swirl marks on the paint, it can actually heal itself sitting in the hot sun, which is pretty neat. So that is one of the highest quality, best ceramic coatings available. FinLab, it is expensive, but it actually works. And if you're gonna spend the money on it, you might as well get a really good one. So that would be my recommendation for that. And for the next one, thanks for all your videos. I bought my last car based on your recommendation from the channel, a Mazda CX-30. Now I'm looking at a sedan with better fuel economy. I know you mentioned that the 1.5 turbo engine on the Honda Accord has some problems. Is the problem still today on the 2025 model, or should I go for a hybrid or the Camry Hybrid 2025? If I were buying a Honda, for sure I would take the hybrid over the 1.5 turbo engine. That's the case when it comes to the Honda CR-V, the Honda Accord. The hybrid is the much better engine. It doesn't have a turbo, so no concerns there. It's very reliable, no major concerns, great performance, great fuel economy. Without question, the hybrid is the way to go. The 1.5 turbo engine is okay, but it has some reliability concerns. Oil dilution, head gasket problems. You can prevent all that if you maintain it really well with more frequent oil changes and you do more long distance driving, but still those reliability concerns are there. Just to eliminate all that altogether, get the hybrid for the Honda. And as for the Accord Hybrid versus Camry Hybrid, both are excellent cars. Between the two, I think the Camry has more benefits, more advantages. I'll put a link to a video comparison between the two that I did a while back, so that should answer more of your questions on that. But either way, both are excellent cars. Okay, next question. I traded my 2020 Honda Civic for a new 2025 Hyundai Tucson Hybrid. I think it's a solid upgrade, but should I be worried about the longevity of the Tucson Hybrid after 5 years when the lease ends? I'll have to decide whether I want to buy it out. Thanks to you for your insights and keep it up. So Hyundai is a vehicle brand that I would recommend leasing and then returning at the end of the lease. They do make pretty good cars when it comes to their hybrids. The Tucson Hybrid and its hybrid system really doesn't have a lot of major reliability concerns. It seems to have been a very solid vehicle so far. But when it comes to that long-term reliability, if you want to keep the vehicle for upwards of 10 years or more and drive it for upwards of 200,000 miles, 300,000 kilometers, it wouldn't be the safest choice for that purpose. For that purpose, you're much better off going with a Toyota hybrid or even a Honda hybrid because they have that proven longevity and they are known to last that long without having problems. So a vehicle like this, I would probably return it at the end of the lease and then look at something else instead. Okay, next one. I am buying my last car. I would like a 3-row SUV or full-size truck. What is your suggestion? Okay, quite an open question there. Okay, full-size trucks and 3-row SUVs. Now, I really don't recommend too many full-size trucks, at least brand new ones, because they all have their own reliability concerns, and some of them are very significant. I mean, you just can't win with full-size trucks these days. The quality has really gone downhill. If I were to buy a brand new full-size truck, I think my pick as being the safest choice for quality would be a Ford F-150 with the 5-liter V8 engine. That is a solid truck. The engine doesn't have any reliability concerns. They're well made, and you can get some really, really good deals on those trucks. So I think that would be my number one pick for brand new. For a used truck, I would go with a Tundra. The previous generation Toyota Tundra made until 2021. Bulletproof reliability. That's a truck that'll last you forever. No issues whatsoever. But if you can avoid a truck, I would avoid it. They cost a lot of money to buy. They cost a lot of money to run, gas, maintenance, and so on. So don't buy a truck unless you absolutely need it. If you can get by with an SUV, I would get an SUV instead. Good 3-row SUVs include the Toyota Highlander or Grand Highlander, including the hybrids, which I think are the best ones. The Honda Pilot, if you want a powerful V6 engine, the Honda Pilot is an excellent 3-row SUV, very well made. or you can get something a little bit more luxurious like the Acura MDX, which is also a really nice SUV. So you have some really good options there. I'll have a video on the best 3-row SUVs coming out in the near future, so definitely take a look at that. And for the next question, I watch a lot of your videos and it seriously helped me a lot. I live in Canada and I have a budget of $60,000. I like the Hyundai Santa Fe hybrid. Should I go for it or do you have another option? Please help me, I'd like to buy it. Okay, Hyundai Santa Fe hybrid. That's actually not a bad SUV if you want to buy a hybrid with 3 rows of seats. That's a little bit on the more spacious side. My number one choice for a hybrid SUV like that would be a Toyota Highlander hybrid, by far the best one. But they are tough to get. You have to order it. You have to wait a long time before you'll be able to take delivery, at least several months or over a year. It's pretty ridiculous what the wait times are like on those. So if you don't have the time for that, this could be a good alternative because it is a well-designed SUV. Now, if you don't need 3 rows of seats, I would go for something else like a Honda CR-V hybrid, which is a phenomenal SUV, very fuel efficient, very well made, and you can get some really good deals on those. So that would be my number one choice. And before we finish up today, a lot of you tend to ask in these Q&A videos, what car are you driving? Because I'm always in a different car, a car that I'm testing for the channel, and you always want to know what it is. So I'm going to let you guess the car that I'm driving, and I'll give you a hint. I'll show you the headrest over here, so maybe that should give it away, at least narrow it down to 3 vehicles. So if you know what car this is, let me know in the comments. And I hope you enjoyed the Q&A video this week. And if you want to have your question answered in a future Q&A video, again, just leave your question in the comments below. I'll try my best to answer it next time. And if you need any additional car buying advice, recommendations, or help with getting a good deal, especially now, like I said, the tariffs are eventually coming. Between now and June is the best time to get a good deal on a new car. If you live in Ontario, make sure to check out carhelpcanada.com and I'll help you get an excellent deal on your next new car. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.